Good evening. I am going to be discussing the strengths-based perspectives. Currently, I will be coming to you from my daughter's bedroom, as it is one of the only rooms in my home that is quiet enough to do this recording, oddly enough. So looking at the explanation of the strengths perspective, there are several principles to the strengths perspective. In many theories, there is a perception that clients may not be able to find their way through their shortcomings. The strengths perspective assists social work professionals to acknowledge that clients can overcome and solve their problems and barriers with help of informal supports, formal supports, which would be members of the community, or community resources. The idea is that the social worker focuses and hones in on what the client's strengths are by looking at what the client already does well and what the client hopes to achieve. It is important to note that for the strengths perspective to be successful, the social worker must listen to, empower, be optimistic, be supportive, provide encouragement, and be engaging with the client. The strengths perspective is one of the more novice perspectives in the social work field. Several influential and notable individuals have and are still paving the way for the strengths perspective. Those individuals do include Ann Warwick, Charles Rapp, and most notably Dennis Slaby. Mr. Slaby has written several books and pieces of literature regarding the strengths perspective. Mr. Slaby's methods are utilized in educating, teaching, and furthering the knowledge of social work professionals. The strengths perspective began as a reactionary front within the social work profession. Rather than focusing on what is wrong with the client, to realizing the client brings strengths and resources to the table and not just a problem. Strengths perspective focuses on respect and self-determination, which tie directly into the social work code of ethics. So discussing principles of the strengths perspective, unlike other components, the strengths perspective is not quite a theory or model, but rather it is a way of understanding experiences and drawing out the strengths and supports that the client already has within their life. Slaby had noted that the basic idea is that social workers may assist people in becoming aware that they are making decisions and choices even when they believe that others are determining their fate. The principles that make up the strengths perspective are ever changing. However, the beliefs that are currently in place include that the individuals, families, groups, communities, and other systems have natural strengths which can be exploited for the betterment of the client. The 6 principles of the strengths-based perspective are: person-centered practice serve to guide and direct the range of helping. Slaby explained the principles of the strengths perspective are that every individual, group, family, and community has strengths. Trauma, abuse, illness, and struggles may be injurious, but they may also be sources of challenge and opportunity. Assume that you do not know the upper limits of the capacity to grow and change and take individual, group, and community aspirations seriously. We best serve clients by collaborating with them. Every environment is full of resources and caring, caretaking, and context. It is important for social workers using these principles in practice to understand the client's struggles, their shortcomings, and limitations, but at the same time identifying their strengths and drawing on those perspectives and the client's support. Another way to look at these principles is that the client wants to know that you actually care about them, that how you fare makes a difference to you, that you will listen to them, that you will respect them no matter what their history, and that you believe that they can build something of value with the resources within and around them. Most of the clients we come in contact with have suffered from some type of trauma in their life. However, this does not mean that they are damaged to the point that they cannot heal. Clients should be encouraged to acknowledge these traumas and face them so that they can begin the process of overcoming them. Social workers need to look at the situation holistically and take the client's beliefs and values into account when looking at their strengths. Our clients will be better served when we make an overt pact with the promise and possibility. This means that we must hold high our expectations of clients and make allegiance with their hopes, visions, and values. Social workers should strive to work hand in hand with their clients to create a professional collaboration. By doing this, both the client and the social worker will be best able to create a successful working relationship. If this relationship is fostered correctly, it will allow the client to open up and share their experiences from the micro level. The social worker should listen openly and allow the client to express themselves. The social worker should look at the meso level and determine which community resources would best benefit the client. In every environment, there are individuals, associations, groups, and institutions who have something to give, something that others may desperately need. Knowledge, an actual resource or talent, or simply time and place. Such resources usually exist outside the usual matrix of social and human service agencies. Geographical location can impact the availability of services. However, it should be noted that even in rural areas, resources can be located. The goal of community service providers, social workers, and resources is to work in concert for the well-being of the client. Just as history has shown, society should care for those who are less fortunate. There are several words that goes into the language of the strengths-based perspective. When looking at that, we look at the core values, and to summarize those, we would look at plasticity, empowerment, membership, resilience, healing and wholeness, and dialogue and collaboration. Looking at the strength perspective and applying the systems theory application on the micro, meso, and macro level is one way the strengths perspective can be applied. Putting social work practice into play, the client and social worker work collaboratively using the strengths of the client to build the client's recovery plan. The basic premise and idea of the strengths perspective is you want to have that open conversation with the client. Find out what they're suffering from, what's going on with them, and come at them from a non-judgmental point of view. And understand that everybody has hardships and they affect everybody differently. Not everyone copes the same way. By finding out what those issues are and then digging deep and helping the client discover what the underlying need is. For example, let's take substance abuse as an example. Most people who are engaged in substance abuse are not just using for the sake of using. There's usually an underlying need. There's a trigger, there's a source to that, to which first got them to start using in the first place. If that underlying need is not discovered, worked through, and overcome by the client, then sobriety is going to be very difficult because it will always be looming there as a trigger for them to relapse. With the strengths perspective, you have to look at what that client already has within their power. What kind of support system do they have? What sort of strengths do they have? I mean, most of our clients have been through a lot. So, I mean, they're usually resilient, tenacious. They're still pushing on and going through. All of those strengths can be used and should be used to build up the client rather than just judging the client for what's on face value. The idea is to then use those strengths, set up a case plan, and allow that client's strengths to be the lead way in that client's treatment. So that is kind of the general overview of the Strengths perspective. Thank you for watching.